First of all, could you explain for our viewers who won't necessarily know what Project Turnkey is, what it is, and why you and the speaker disagree on it?
Sure. And fundamentally, we don't. I'm down as a fiscal watchdog on Turnkey. Turnkey was the acquisition of motels and hotels that willing sellers would sell to the state of Oregon to be purchased with public money. We ended up outsourcing all of that activity to the Oregon Community Foundation for a variety of reasons. I didn't certainly agree with all of them, but the state's inability to get projects started, I'm sure, was at the core of why we were doing it, and our poor performance on project initiation. But we outsourced this work to the Oregon Community Foundation and then poured money into OCF. I didn't disagree with the concept. What I disagreed with was the lack of fiscal accountability. Nobody, to my satisfaction, had assessed the condition of some of these properties. What would it take to turn what were transient lodging into permanent habitation, like kitchens in bedrooms or showers, or ADA showers, elevators. How long had maintenance been deferred that might have caused the property to be listed for sale? How much hidden deferred maintenance was there? And my very profound concern that if we didn't work out appropriate, accurate fiscal models, that when some of the not-for-profits that took over these properties could not financially sustain the operation, that they would be back at the general fund begging for more state support. So I was looking for financial accountability because my problem right straight along has been that of money. We have no benchmarks to account how many people we've taken off the streets, but my problem with Turnkey right straight along was, what are the conditions of those properties? What's going to be the sustainable financial model? Because all too often those properties were coming into the portfolio of small not-for-profits that had depended on the kindness of strangers and contributions to run their core operation, much less take on properties in various conditions and in various need of capital maintenance or capital construction to make them long-term durable housing options.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to respond to that? Otherwise, we'll move on.
Yeah, just briefly. We're in a crisis.
Squirrel trying to get in really badly.
He wants housing too.
Yeah. Everybody wants housing. We're in a crisis. I don't disagree that we need accountability on what we do. And I wouldn't talk about Oregon Community Foundation as outsourcing. What I would say is we develop a strong private-public partnership with someone who could move these dollars quickly and do the due diligence. They brought a team of experts in to do the due diligence on all these properties. They didn't buy crappy properties. They bought ones that could do the job. State doesn't own them. These community partners own them. I've visited many of them around the state since we've started. In only 7 months, Project Turnkey was able to increase shelter capacity statewide by 20%. Almost 900 units.
So are the properties owned by Oregon OCF?
They are owned, no. They are owned by the partners who do the project. So in many cases, local governments with community nonprofits who run them, right? They're different for each one. Yeah. We were in the pandemic. We needed to have people, we have properties. The moment said, let's get these properties. We need, obviously, ongoing oversight and accountability, but to stop and say, we don't want to do this right now because we're not quite sure it's right. I'm sorry, we're in a crisis. I can be impatient when people need help, and we just disagree on the urgency of it, I think, so.
Quick follow-up, sure, yeah, go ahead.
The Project Turnkey model has not been completely successful in California. And while I don't disagree with the speaker that there's a certain amount of urgency, I still think there's an accountability element. We're spending public money in triple-digit millions. I think we owe it to the citizens of Oregon to say that we're making a long-term investment. We're not crippling these not-for-profits that have taken the motels into their portfolio, that there is a sustainable plan. And I'll just bet you as we go forward that some of these are going to be back to the general fund saying we are unable to sustain operations or long-term maintenance at a level commensurate with having many people live in these facilities. That was my concern. I saw large-scale yes, it can work, yes, there's urgency, yes, we need to do this. I wanted to get into the details of each one of the properties and find out what's the long-term sustainability. And I think if you review the literature in California, you're going to find that the Project Turnkey model down there has not been successful entirely.
So I want
Great,
to say
thanks.
one thing about Project Turnkey very briefly. You know, my experience with Project Turnkey, I supported it when it was first proposed. They went after a very rural, remote, single hotel in the community of Estacada, no services, one bus route once a day, nothing out there, just as a way literally to address the homeless challenge with an out of sight, out of mind approach. And it would have been the only hotel in that community which they were dependent on long term for economic activity. So you get the fires, they shut down the highway going into that community, and then you take their only hotel and you turn it into homeless housing. From my perspective, the approach to Project Turnkey, over the course of COVID, of course a lot of those hotels were in distress. Our economy had been shut down, and some of those hotel owners were anxious to get out from underneath that debt. But in some cases, it's not the right fit for the homeless populations, and it's certainly not the right fit for the community. And this idea that we're going to move full steam ahead and run full steam ahead no matter what, you know, like details, who cares? Does not support our long-term approach to homelessness. And certainly in the case of my own community, they were a case study in homeless response gone wrong.
Great, thanks.
Isn't just how many beds Project Turnkey had?
In the first wave of the 70 million, about 850 units.
So there are 850.
That was in the
rooms.
first new shelter beds, yes, with services. Most of these have been shelters, they're transitional shelters, and most of them have services with them, people on site.